Hi, my name is Neil, and today I'm going to see what I can do with this old cuckoo clock. Now, a little bit of background on why I'm doing this. I find myself with a lot of stuff from 3 or 4 generations, and each item, somebody said it was their parents, or said, oh, that's really old, or that, I think that might be worth something. But no one could ever really do anything other than that. They just kept it, give it to the next generation, the next generation. So my goal here in general is to take these things one at a time, get to the bottom of it, see if it's fixable, and then just kind of move out from there. Because I don't want to just hold the pile longer and then give it to another generation. And we all know that sooner or later, a generation comes along that just looks like a bunch of junk. And in one trip to the dump, they simplify their life, and stuff that was intentionally held on to for 100 years is gone. So that's the big picture. I would say don't subscribe to this channel because it's not a cuckoo clock channel. Each thing is going to be completely different. I think next I'm going to tackle an Atari 2600, see if I can fix that. And then, there's a wind up record player that I'm really excited to see if I can get that going. So it's just going to be like random stuff one after the other, with the main purpose being to maybe find the one person out of 6 billion that is exactly trying to do the same thing with one of these items. And also, if there's anyone that can tell me more about any of these things, I'd love to hear it. But then primarily just to get into video, what I've done, how it started, what it looks like when I'm done, and anything that I know about it for future generations. Get it all pinned down. So specifically, this cuckoo clock, I believe my dad got this as a souvenir for his mother when he was stationed in Germany in the early 60s. I remember being over at my grandparents' house and working. And as a small child, I was fascinated with the little birds coming out and singing and stuff. And then when they passed, it's been over at our house for the last 30 years in my room. Just for someday, I'll get around to fixing it. Well, some days now, I have some time and some space and tools, and it's kind of, why not just do it now? I think the last time I took a good look at this 30 years ago or so, and it just didn't do anything. But it hasn't been dropped or damaged that I know of between when I saw it working as a 5-year-old until now. So I think it'll be pretty straightforward. I've done some work on pocket watches, which are a whole different thing. This should be easy compared to a pocket watch. All right, so I'm going to hang it up as it would be when it's operating, and we'll see what it's doing, what it's not doing. All right, so this is not a very dignified spot for hanging a clock like this, but I just needed to get it hanging up so I can actually test what's going on. Now, if you're not familiar with the basics here, we've got these weights, okay? And so you wind these chains up until the weights are high, have a lot of potential energy, and they're all applying a torque on the inside, the mechanism in the clock, okay? And if that's all you had, you'd let go of it, they'd go down, and the hands would spin like a fan. And I suppose you could use that as a timepiece, but it's going to run out in about 30 seconds. Okay, so that kind of makes it not too convenient for the user to have to wind this up every 30 seconds. So the way a clock like this, most clocks work, or most mechanical clocks, is it has a pendulum. And so the pendulum is going to, every time it swings through a certain spot, it's going to sort of open the floodgates here, and these go down a little bit. The clock mechanism moves a little bit, and then the pendulum stops that until the next swing. And so it meters the whole flow of this torque into spinning of the clock mechanism. Right, and so if we don't do anything, it's not going to start by itself. But if we get this moving, it should be with each swing releasing a little bit of the energy and clicking, click, click. I can hear it clicking, so it is engaging somehow. But it looks like it just kind of stops. Okay. So it seems like this, if I hold the pendulum, let me take this off and just actually. So I don't know if the clicking I heard was the mechanism moving or just this kind of hitting the piece of wood as it swung. I don't feel a lot of engagement with what this hangs on to. Okay. So we have a broken clock. Hopefully not actually broken, but gummed up or something has kind of fell out of place. Actually remaking broken parts may be the only thing that could go wrong here, because that could be tough. All right, so now I'm going to take this down and we're going to get into it. So I'm going to take these off to reduce the amount of weight that is flying around here. And I'll see you back at the table. Yeah. All right, so now we're looking at the back of the clock. I guess this is the brand or model, Wienerboot. Right, we have this, obviously seems like the access point for this. This kind of worries me. It looks like nail heads. This could be worrisome. I don't want to pull anything apart here. These, are they nails? So I can feel in here that it doesn't attach to anything underneath there. So let's just see if this back comes off. This is pretty lightweight wood, it feels like. Don't want to do too much. Okay. Slowly, in case it's attached in. Okay. So this, I think, is going to be one of the sound effects. And then this probably bangs into it. Yep. And we see the mechanisms in there. All right, so what should be happening is when this swings, get that a little closer here. All right, this is what the pendulum attaches to. And it swings freely here, but then it attaches to a piece here. Okay. Another rod. So when I see when I move this rod, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a gear in there that turns and it keeps going. Okay. So I'm guessing these three weights or maybe power different things. Probably one of them powers the normal mechanism, and then the others power the sound effects and little birdies and stuff. So let's see if I can figure out which one is under tension now. Okay, so this, the weight that goes here, I think is energizing the thing, because if I put the pendulum over there and pull, it kind of kicks it. All right, well, I moved it over here to the table because this looks like it's going to be a sit-down sort of job, not a quick fix. So by moving the hands on the front to trigger some of the sounds by getting to the top of an hour, I found that this is powering the music box, the middle one, I'm not sure, but I think the one on the right here is the main drive. Let's see, what else do we see? We see made in West Germany, some parts numbers. I'd rather not have to take this whole thing out, but that may be what it comes to. All right, so I've determined that the right chain does power the clock itself because I've been able to pull on these and get various of the things to happen that aren't related to the clock necessarily. So when there's a weight on this, the pendulum, which is attached to this, should each swing allow the gear in there to move a little bit and then spin the whole clock. But it should also, when that happens, it should kick the pendulum a little bit. And it seems like all the pieces are working, but when I try to put the weight on it, it's not getting any kick, or the friction is too great. So I don't think anything is broken, but I think we just got to get this out and clean it. Like get in there and oil some stuff. All right, so it looks like that will come from these 4 screws. And then we can maybe take this mechanism out. All right, so before we do that, these very delicate things here that are attached to the clock, we've got to try and figure out what to do with those, how to get those unhooked from the mechanism. All right, so to get this thing out, I see there's 4 screws that are going to be easy to get to. But this watch, the clock mechanism is attached delicately to all these other little noisemakers. So specifically, I'm going to have to bend this so it comes out, this one. Okay. And then I'm going to have to get these off so that they can, the chain can pass through the hole as this comes out. Okay. That's going to need some repair there to make the right noise. Ah. Okay. So that is held by like some paper back there. But hopefully not too hard to fix that with some tape. Maybe this whole mechanism will come out so that I can move it. There we go. It does have a nail in it. But now I can much more easily remove that. Okay. Little whistle makes a bird sort of effect. This needs to be re-glued, and I think I can fabricate something like that for this side, which is pretty messed up. Let's go ahead and take that out since we know we're going to have to. think we have detached everything that doesn't want to come out. So now we'll do these 4 screws and see if that is true. All right, so the last thing I'm stuck on now is these hands. I have a hand puller for watches and pocket watches, but it's not big enough for this. So I got to think of something smart here, not fast. I've been at this an hour or so now, and so I'm going to call it a day because this should be fun. And when you feel yourself getting frustrated and you just want to get to the end, then that's when you got to stop working on your watch or clock. Lessons learned today for somebody out there doing this. Just take these out, and then you don't have to bend the wire to loosen them, because doing that is going to likely tear the paper all apart. And yeah, that's the main thing that didn't go as planned, other than the hands on the front. I'll get that figured out tomorrow. Jeez. Okay, well, looks like we broke a hand. So, problems keep adding up. This is starting to feel more like I'm working on a car, which is not a good sign. When I turn a hand, this cap moves, but the spindle is not moving. Yet every time I get to 12, I hear a click to like start the music. So it means that's a tube with something else inside. So it's not going to just pop off, and it's as easy as this. Just have to screw the cap off. Yeah. Oh, nice going. Broke the hand from nothing. Now, everybody should come out. In the middle. Okay. Got to get these guys there. Nice. Okay. All right, so here we have the clock. Kind of dirty. I don't know if it's that bad, though. Now, oiling a watch or clock is kind of, you don't want to just throw oil everywhere. However, this doesn't have any capped jewels, and I think I'll err on the slightly over-oiled side of things. Okay, so what I've done now is oiled especially the pivots that are in the powertrain here, front and back. I found a few that I missed. Closer. It's running for a while now, even without the pendulum. So we're on the right track. Not an example of my best work. I'm just trying to. So what I've done is put the movement back in the clock. I just attached two of the mounting screws to hold it in. And I'm going to see if we can get it to run for a while. Maybe get that oil distributed a little better. So here, clicking, the pendulum isn't just swinging, it's also getting a little energy each time. Seems to be going okay. So I'm going to leave this like this for maybe the rest of the day, see what we have. All right, so since I turned the camera off, that's pretty much at the point that figuring this was going to take more effort than I had hoped. Just oiling it didn't really help. So what I did is I built this stand here, basically with a couple nails in it and a hole in the back so that the pinion that holds the hands, the front of the clock is back here. This is the back. A hole so that stuff can pass through. And so now I can access the sides, get in here more easily than actually working on it while it's in the clock case. So it's easier, and it's also, if this is going to be in and out a lot, eventually I'm going to drop the clock case or scratch it on something. It's just a lot of wear and tear putting this thing back in the case and taking it out over and over. So this is just a piece of wood, has a couple nails in it that the movement can hang on, and it has enough length here for it to run maybe an hour if it's so inclined. And I was buckling down to really get into this, but now it runs. And it runs for a while. It runs until the weight hits the bottom here and can't move to supply any more energy. So my hope now is that I won't have to take all of this apart. All right, so these things are pretty important. They make the bird sounds. And in both cases, the paper has rotted in only 60 years of movement. So it should be easy to fabricate one of these. You can see it's sort of a flat piece of paper that's been origami. All right. So this turned out to be harder than I thought, for sure. Um, you can see I'm 5 or 6 iterations into this. I think I have a working system now. So I'll actually do the second one on video. A couple things I'll cut to the chase here. I discovered that on eBay, people still like make these replacement tops. You just glue it on, $25 or something. That's probably what I would do if I have to do this again. But I was kind of invested in just getting it done all myself, and I think it's working. Anybody looking at this would say this is obviously an amateur job, which it is. And I don't know how long it'll last. But you don't see this. It's tucked in there pretty good. So I'm not too worried about looks. I'm not trying to sell this or professionally restore it. Okay, so let's do it again. All right, so it's been a while on my end. I think when I left off, I cleaned it. I thought it was running well, cleaned everything else, and just wanted to run it a little bit longer before reattaching the music box and the bird baffles and all that. So I found that it runs like a clock, except when it doesn't. It's hanging on the wall, run 6 hours, start it over, pull the weight up, run it again, go to sleep, come in the next day, and it has stopped before the weight got to the ground. So just every day or so, it just stops. So that's not really acceptable. So what I did is I took the movement and put it in a sonic cleaner, which just seems a little extreme. It's not the ideal way to do things. But unlike a pocket watch or a wristwatch, there aren't delicate jewels in here that can pop out of their socket. It doesn't need different oils for different parts. It doesn't have shellac or like a glue holding anything together, which would just be destroyed by vibration tumbling. So it's really not that illegitimate to take the whole thing and just clean it out. It's not the professional way to do it, but I'm not the first to do it either. So I did that a couple times and then put it in the oven at 200 to really get the water to evaporate instead of sitting in a little pocket and get corrosion. The one big mistake I made there, of course, I took the plate here with the dancers off, and I thought from there on out everything was metal. But it turns out under here, the track that the bottom of the dancers goes in and makes them like change directions was not metal. It's some sort of Bakelite or plastic or something, but it just really looked like a piece of metal. I don't know why they would make this out of plastic. So that was really a setback. So I got into the 3D printer and made a substitute for this. I think it'll work. We'll see. I didn't film that because that's a whole other topic, really. And I'm less of an expert at that than I am at fixing clocks, which is pretty low for both. So I didn't make a video of all that. But I think I've got a replacement part under here that will at least make the dancers do something interesting when this spins. So now what I'm going to do is put it back in the clock case, hang it up again, and just ensure that it runs for a couple days without randomly hanging up. Then, if I pass that test, after I've already re-oiled all the pivots after the cleaning, the deep cleaning, if I can get it consistently running, then I'll see you next when I'm putting it back into the case and hooking up all the little complications. So wish me luck. All right, so here's where I'm at now. I've had this up and running. I put a Nest Cam on it because it's pretty easy to make time-lapse clips. Because the challenge now is you can't, it only does something every hour other than the normal movements. So it's kind of hard to sit here and watch it and see if it's working. But with the time lapse, you can see this stuff's actually moving. All right, so after a few hours, I see that all the weights have moved, indicating that something's gone, and the bird comes out and the people dance. The people didn't initially dance, although the weight would move, and I found that there's an axle that goes top to bottom, and the top is connected to the dancing people, and the bottom connects to a horizontal bar that's connected to the gears, and they are connected with like sort of these cupped gears that hit perpendicularly. but they weren't connecting. I'm not sure what happened there because there's not really any play in either of them. I don't know how they got to where they were separate. But the one on the bottom, fortunately, has these screw pins. You can loosen and slide it along the rod. So I got that connected. So as far as I can tell, the music box activates, the bird activates, and the people dance. The bird, it looks like sometimes doesn't go all the way back in, but I think that is a pretty mild adjustment I can make if that is the case. So I also found that the cuckoos sounded okay. I thought that was just going to be like a crinkly sound because of the paper. Thought I was going to have to get some softer to like stop rip paper or something. But actually, it's good enough for me. So I think I'm in the home stretch. I'm going to tighten this down and put the hands on, and then see how that goes. And then the final step, maybe, will be actually adjusting the pendulum to get the correct time. And a couple tricks here. I wanted to kind of accelerate things so that hours went by faster to see if stuff happened at the top of every hour. So I didn't put the pendulum on. All right, so the thing swings really fast. So it probably moves an hour every 10 minutes. So that's one trick. So yeah, I'm gonna put the hands on and then go from there. You might remember I broke the hour hand because I had no clue how to get the hands off. I bought a couple off of Amazon. Thought that must be pretty standard. All these come from the same place, but they are not. Okay, so you can't just randomly buy cuckoo clock hands and know that they'll fit on. So instead of making a big delayed effort to reorder, I went back to the drawing board with the original one. I had glued these with a hot gun together, and that didn't work at all. Like really gluing two flat things together, it doesn't work very well. We know that. So what I did is I took a very small flat washer, and now it's glued together that way. You'll see now there's a lot more surface area, and I used epoxy instead of hot glue. Okay, so that's where we're at. Let's see if we can get these hands on and really start tight. All right, let's try it out. The thing I'm confused about now is it appears that I could put the hands anywhere I want. There's not like a notch that I can see. And so how is the clock going to know where the hands are at? Because it's supposed to do something at the top of the hour, and then I think the dancing only happens at noon and midnight maybe. So somehow that has to get synced up. I see. This is actually the thing this goes on to is square on one corner and then round, as is this. So that's got to be what keeps the hour. It knows where the minute hand is. And then the hour hand, you just adjust it so that it points at an hour in sync with the minute hand, getting to the top. All right, so here's where I'm at. It's been a day or so, and it consistently runs. Okay, so there's no just weird stoppages. The only two things that I'm looking at for issues is that sometimes when it does its cuckoo thing, it gets stuck out there. And it's not just a little spring adjustment. Something's actually jammed. So I need to look into that. The other problem is that the actions should be initiated at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour. But it seems like it's more at like quarter till and quarter after that we hear the thing click, and normally it would do something, except it's jammed up. So I got to look at that minute hand again and see if there's another way that it fits into the key there. Hopefully it's not the actual gear itself needs to be rotated, because you'd have to take the whole thing apart, and I really don't want to do that. Okay, so the hand thing was super simple. The hand itself doesn't have a key sort of fit to it. It's the thing behind it, and then there's a washer on front, kind of clamps it down. So you just got to loosen the knob at the very front, and then the hand you can put wherever you want. So that's adjusted. I keep playing with sometimes the bird comes back in, sometimes he doesn't. It seems to be working now. I'm going to move on to adjusting the timing. Okay. So what I'm going to do for that is I have something that I trust. Okay. I'm not going to worry about the hour hand right now, because hopefully it's good enough that I'm not going to come back and not know even what hour it is. It's really the minutes should be getting a little faster, a little low. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the minute hand on 49. Okay, he worked that time. 49. Okay, obviously we don't have any seconds on this. I would say that's about 49. We'll get it swinging. Okay, and I'm going to write that down. At 10:50, we set it. And then I'll be able to we'll come back maybe in 6 hours, see how much it's drifted, and we'll get a drift in minutes per hour. And then we'll adjust the pendulum and try and zero that out. Okay, so at 10:50, it was set, and then we'll come back in a little while. All right, so I think we're just about done. It's been a week or 2 weeks that I've been working on the timing of it. And I think I've got it tuned in. So with that, I would run it for a day, and I would come and look at the time, compare it to a known clock, and say it was, okay, I've lost 3 minutes over 6 hours. How many, make an adjustment, fine tune, and all. One thing I thought was very clever, but, really with clocks, anything you figure out has been figured out 200 years ago. But what I decided to do, well, here's my problem. There's no second hand on here. And you can only really read these hands to give or take a minute. There's not even minute divisions between them. Because of course people will complain that their clock's not accurate if they can tell that it's not accurate easily. But what I decided to do, and so the problem with that is that once you get close, let's say it's losing a minute a day, that's still not really as good as it should be. But it's going to take me 3 days to really get a good measurement on having lost 3 minutes. And then you just get into weeks of making these fine tunes. So what my idea is since I had the Nest Cam on it, just filming continually, I would go through the footage, and as soon as the bird came out and made his first peck, I would record the time. And so that should be exactly an hour apart that the first peck of the bird comes. And I can measure that on the Nest Cam to within a second, let's say. So I was able to really then make teeny adjustments on this, as small as possible. And I think I got it into where it's between from 1 hour to the next, it's a second or two early, second or two late. Now we're just lost in the air density and humidity and temperature. So that's one trick. What I've got to do now is put the back on so that I can hear this last little effect. Switch over from these paper clips that I had the weights on, just so that I could disassemble it really easily. Put the real ones back on, and then hope that I have no extra parts. Doesn't look like, I think they're all accounted for. And then find a place for it. So before I do those last little things, also got to glue the lady back on. Before I get into that, just a couple takeaways. First off, don't throw the whole assembly in a sonic vibrator cleaner. That doesn't work. I still think that my initial idea, since there was no damage to this, of cleaning it from externally a little bit, re-oiling it, and just cleaning it up, I think that might have worked. Here's what I did not know about clocks like this. They're very sensitive to how they're hung on the wall. Unlike a wristwatch, it doesn't matter if it's upside down or sideways, because it's a whole different mechanism, timing mechanism, spring. So spring instead of weights. But every time this thing swings back and forth, it goes just far enough to let the piece in there that releases the gear, and then stops it, then gets a little kick, and it stays energized. Pallet fork. So if the clock is just a degree rotated or so, it can totally mess up the punch of that mechanism. And I think that probably was why it would run some and not for very long. So if you got one of these and you skipped right to the end, make sure it's perfectly level. You may have perfectly fine clock. If doing a little superficial stuff to it doesn't help, then you're probably looking at it taking the whole thing apart. But I found even after I took it apart, oiled everything, knew it was clean, put it back on the wall, and it did exactly the same thing. Run, kind of run, not run. And then I got the clock level, and it ran fine. So there you go. Regrets. Don't try and use pliers like a wristwatch to pull these things off the hands. There's just a little friction screw there, and you just adjust that until the bird starts at the very top, and then tighten it down. Those are my big lessons, I think. To be honest, it's still not perfect. There was at least once in the past couple weeks that it just mysteriously stopped running, and also the bird will get stuck out sometimes, maybe a third of the time. And then usually the next hour, it clicks whatever is jamming, and he's back on track. But you might just have to look at I might just have to look at the bird half an hour being out. I could dig into that if I was an OCD perfectionist, but every time I take this thing down and do something with it, it's another chance that one of these is going to hang on a car bumper and the whole thing's going to fly across the room. I'm not scheduling trains with this thing. I just want it to work sort of as a conversation piece, as a family heirloom, and I'm happy with where it's at right now. Having learned so much hands-on experience with this, I'm almost tempted to go buy another one, because I could do it in half the time. This took me, it's probably been 6 or 7 weeks that I've been working on this, but really just a total of 15 hours probably of actually digging on it. I know I could take the same one and get it running beautifully in just a few hours probably. But you only live once, and these as an industry aren't that exciting for me. I've got a lot of broken Waltham pocket watches from the 1800s that I think I'll spend that time on. Pocket watch, you give it to somebody even today, they kind of appreciate it. You can feel the quality. These, it's kind of a family heirloom, or it's not probably too much. There's not too many people, I think, that just love hearing a cuckoo clock every hour, unless they have a real connection to it. So this is going to be a one-off for me, I think. All right, so let me get to putting the last little pieces of this back in. And make sure it still runs. We'll get this nice big sound effect going. And then I'll film it in action. All right, I think I'm going to call this project over. It's up and running. Maybe not as good as new, but good enough for me. I wouldn't sell it as a professionally restored clock. People would, there'd be a lot of return business probably. A little quirk here or there, but good enough for me. It doesn't really fit the space, but actually we found a use for it. We have a puppy, and we need a little reminder about every half hour to try and house train the puppy. And it's actually kind of hard to tell Alexa or Siri, to give me a gentle little reminder every half hour. So voila, the cuckoo does that for me. It won't stay here. I'll find some place where it fits a little better. But you can see it's running. Some lessons learned. I'll probably get back to pocket watches instead of leveraging on this, but it was all about repairing something that I was too attached to ever get rid of, so it may as well be working. And so that's where I'll leave this story. Next, we'll get a close-up of it going off, and that'll be the end of the video. Hopefully it helped you. Give me some comments if you know something I don't, or whatever. We'll do it.